So I was going through one of my old SoundCloud accounts, and I came across this beat, and I decided I wanted to remaster it. So let's listen to it for a second. It's a very summertime vibe kind of a beat. It's very different than what I normally make. I don't know what possessed me to make this, and I think I made this beat like 2 or 3 years ago. So yeah, I'm gonna be remastering this. So, and because I made it so long ago, there are going to be things about it that I'm going to want to change that I'm not going to be able to in an easy way because I don't have the steps. So let's go ahead and begin. I've already got it on a mixer channel. And I think the first thing I'm going to do is throw on Maximus, and I'm going to focus in on some stuff that I think I want to make louder. Okay, I think I want to focus in on those hats, those hi-hats. I want to make them a little bit louder. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn on linear phase because I don't want to have any phasing issues. Also, I don't really care for any look-ahead delay right now. So let's focus in on those hats. I'm going to try and find the hats. So let me solo this. Okay, so in order to make the hats a little bit louder, what I'm going to do is put a point right here, and I want to curve this line up so that anything below this dot becomes louder. In fact, let me move this up a little bit so it turns them up even more. And then on the flip side, I want to compress this snare, so the loudest part of this, and I don't want to compress it too much. And the reason for that is because in this higher range, I want the prominent thing to be the hats. So let me turn this back to normal so I can see what I'm doing. So let me push this into this a little bit more. I would normally level match this, but I want to listen to it as a whole now and hear what it sounds like. So let me turn up the hats. Okay, and at this stage, I'm also going to center or merge this little region here that's mostly the hats here. So our lows are basically everything. I am going to start the compression at this stage, and I'm going to do so in very tiny amounts. So let's go up here. And so I brought it down by 0.9, so let's bring this up by 0.9. And then for the like super high range, I might do the same thing except for the mid-range, except instead of like compressing it lightly, I think I'm going to limit it so that it's basically just the hats in this high range. I say just the hats. Essentially, I want the hats to be the most dominant thing in this high range. So I'm going to push this up into this a little bit. And then I am going to level match down a little bit just to make up for it, because I think they're a little bit loud now. It's not exact, but okay, let's go to the master, and then let's do some super light compression. Basically only grabbing the stuff that's like super loud. Bring it down a little bit. I think I want the low end of the bass to be a little bit louder now as well. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to open up another instance of Maximus, and to really focus in on the bass, I'm going to bring this down to about 100 hertz, and then I'm going to bring this all the way down to 250. Okay, so right now I'm looking at the low end, which is 100 hertz and below, roughly. So this is the part that I want to kind of focus on, and I want this part to be a little bit louder. So I think what I'm going to do is start to compress it a little bit because I want it to be a little bit more even across the top. So that's probably a good amount. I don't have to adjust this at all. But then I think I want the quieter parts of this to be a bit louder. So I'm going to make a point right here. And then I think I want everything below this line to be louder. And then I think as a whole, I want this whole bass section to be a bit louder. So I'm going to take the post and bring it up a bit. Okay, let's go to the mid. Oh, and in this very low section, this 100 hertz and below, I'm going to go ahead and start to merge it. Let's go to 20. And so the mid section here is between 100 and 250 hertz. Okay, so let's do the same thing. Let's try to control the stuff that gets a little bit higher than everything else. So this may be a little bit too low, but let's just look and see. I think I'm okay with this one compressing a little bit more. So I brought this down by 0.7. Let's go up by 0.7. And then I think I want to do the same thing I did before. I want to bring the quieter stuff up a little bit. Okay, and then the highs are basically everything above 250 hertz, which is pretty much the entire thing. So we can do some light compression. I want the hats to be a little bit louder, so I'm going to come back up to this one, go back to the mid section, and go to the post knob and bring it up a bit. Okay, I think I want to throw on an EQ just to look at things. I wanted to boost some of these sub-bass frequencies a little bit. Kind of hesitant to boost these middle frequencies because I don't want that guitar to get too like resonant, because I can already hear it kind of being a little resonant. I don't want to push that too much. I do just like a gentle one. Okay, I'm gonna open up Patcher and I'm gonna open up a mid-side EQ. Yep. So these are the sides. I think I want to boost some of these bass frequencies. I don't want anything in the sub range too much, but boosting some of these lower ones probably won't hurt. I can probably get some of these higher frequencies in too. Let's look at the mids. Maybe use a bit of a boost here. Again, I'm hesitant to boost this area too much, because where's that guitar? Yeah, there's a sharp frequency in here. Okay, so let me listen to some other parts of it just to make sure I've got the balancing right, and then I think I'm going to consolidate it to save some CPU, and then we'll continue with the process. Okay, yeah, so let's go ahead and consolidate. So all I really did was bring up some levels, do a small amount of compression. No, I mean, that was basically it. So let's put this up here. Okay, so let's route it over. I'm going to put it on, or I'm going to put the pre-master chain on it. And I'm essentially just going to have each of these turned off until I go to use them. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at an EQ, which I basically just got done doing, so there shouldn't be anything I'm going to learn here. I'm also going to go to a different part of the song that's also loud, just so we can hear something different for a little bit. You can see I'm going above 0 now, so I'm going to bring the volume down a little bit. Yeah, so as far as the EQ, I've already done a lot of that already. So let's go to our first instance of Maximus. In this instance of Maximus, I'm going to be essentially worried about the extreme lows and the extreme highs. And any compression I do in the middle section here will be very minimal, because it's essentially the entire frequency range of the entire song. So for the low band, I'm at 50 hertz. At the high band, I'm at about 10K, you know, plus or minus a little bit. Doesn't need to be exact, just, you know, pretty far up there. Linear phase is turned on to prevent phasing issues when you're independently, you know, affecting different frequency ranges and putting them in mono spaces versus separated. It helps reduce that. Low cutting, just doing small amounts each time we use Maximus, so we don't need to deal with that, as well as when I'm putting on EQs. So let's begin. So here we're on our lows. Oh, and my lows I am merging 10%. And I'm doing that in small amounts, a bunch of different times. So let's see if we can't get these levels to be a little bit closer to being the same. And I also want this to be a bit louder. I'm used to seeing this frequency range being a little bit louder. So I'm going to compress, but I'm also going to make this louder. So let's compress first. So I went up 0.5. So normally I would go down by 0.5, but because I want this to be louder, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to make it louder. I'm just going to push this up a little bit more. Okay, and I kind of want to accentuate this a little bit. I'm going to make everything that is quieter than this line here louder. And something else you can try at this stage is some saturation. I'm going to put a little bit of saturation on this and see what it sounds like. Okay, let's go to our mids. Looks like we're already compressing the mids a little bit. And remember, the mids are basically everything, so minimal compression. In fact, I may not move this at all. I may just push this a little bit more into the compressor and then pull back. I'm hardly compressing at all, basically, at this point. Okay, let's go to the highs. Okay, so I went up by 2.2. I would go down by 2.2, but again, I kind of want to make this frequency range a little bit louder. So I think instead of going down by 2.2, I'm going to bring it down a little bit less. Maybe 1.7. Oh, and the high range here is being separated by 10%. I think I can treat this one like I treated the mid. And maybe just push a little bit more into it. And then pull back. Let's go back by 0.4. Okay, now we're going to go to our second instance of Maximus, and we're going to do the same thing. The only two differences are I'm now going to be compressing a little bit less aggressively, more aggressively. So you'll see instead of up by the 9, I'm down by the 6. And also for the bands, I've brought them in. So instead of being down by the 100, I'm now up at the 175 range. So you can see right there, 175. And then this is around the 10K range, the 5K range, so 5,000. Okay, instead of the 10,000. So both of those bands have been brought in a little bit. So, but the process will be pretty much exactly the same. So let's start with the lows. And again, 10% merged on the lows. Okay, I think it's compressing a little bit too often here, so I'm going to pull it back. So I pulled it back 1.1. Let's go up by 1.1. I think I'm going to do the same thing I've done a couple of times before. I think I want the quieter part of this range to be a little bit louder. So I'm going to put a point here. And then make everything below that a little bit louder. Okay, so let's compress this mid-range down. I think that's good actually, because I'm only really getting those kicks right there. And I don't have to adjust the volume at all. Let's go to the highs. Now in this high range, I'm okay with compressing a little bit more if it means compressing that snare. So this part right here where the snare is hitting, I'm okay with compressing that a bit more in this high range, because in the high range I want my hi-hats to be a bit more dominant. So I am getting this the hi-hats a little bit here, so I'm going to pull it back. So I pulled it back by 0.9. Let's go up by 0.9. Okay, and my highs again are being separated by 10%. Let's go to the master. This is a little bit too much, especially on the master, so I'm going to pull it back. Okay, so I pulled it back by 2. Let's go up by 2. And we're going to do it again. Except for this time, I'm going to be a bit more strategic with the band placement. Okay, so let's go to our mid band, and I'm going to solo it this time, and I'm going to move these in a particular way. So I'm essentially going to move this low band until I can't hear the kick or the 808. So I can go pretty far. I don't want to go too far, so I'll stop about there. Okay. Right, and then on the highs, I don't want to hear the hi-hats, and that's already kind of the case, so I don't need to move it too much more. Okay, and again on the low cut, we're not low cutting too much. This time it's 11 hertz, but it's not a lot each time. So let's go to the lows, and we're going 10% merged again. So let's compress if we need to. Let's see. Yeah, we can probably compress like a little tiny bit. So maybe right there. And that might be a little bit too much, so I'm going to pull it back. So I pulled it back by 0.4. Let's go up by 0.4. And then I want to hear it in context. Okay, let's go to the mids. Oh, and since I brought these mids in so much, and I'm focusing mostly on the snare here, I am going to center this a little bit. Merge it a little bit. Might be compressing a bit too much. That might be the right amount right there. Okay, so I brought it back by 0.8. Pull it by 0.8. Over. On the high end, if the snare is the loudest part, like it is here, I'm okay with compressing it by quite a bit. So, because again, I want the hi-hats to be the most prominent thing in this higher register. So I'm getting the hats a little bit, so let me back it off. So I brought it back by 0.7, let's go up by 0.7. And then I think I'm okay with this becoming a little bit louder. I'm going to bring this up a bit. And I think I'm going to bring the mid section down a bit. Now the master. And just by looking at this the way it is, I'm probably going to want to do another round of what I just did with Maximus, like 3 times. So let's compress a little bit here. That might be the perfect amount, actually, for now. I think I'm going to push a little bit more into it. So I pushed 0.4. So I'm going to pull back 0.4. Okay. Alright, the next thing I've got going is an instance of patcher where I'm messing with the stereo field. So I'm pulling the low frequencies into the mono field and the high frequencies into stereo a little bit. And you can play with the middle knobs to kind of do something similar. And the next thing I've got is mid-side EQ. So let's look at the sides. Got some harsh frequencies in here that I'm not really a fan of. Just maybe not this like middle section. I don't want to make that too much louder here, because that's where this harshness is kind of coming from. Probably get louder down here. The mids. I'm hesitant to boost this because that's kind of where that harshness is coming from. Alright, so I think I'm going to run it through another set of like 3 instances of Maximus to bring everything down a little bit more, because I think this one needs taking off basically everything except for what I need right now, which is Maximus. Alright, so I'm going to do the same thing I just did again, and I may cut past this since I'm doing the same exact thing again, basically, but we'll see. And then instead of bringing the volume down to level match, I want this to be a bit louder, so I'm going to push it a little bit more. Yep, let's go to the mids, which in this case is everything, so we don't need to do too much compression. Well, and at this stage, I don't want to be messing with the stereo at all. All I'm worried about is the compression. I'm just worried about bringing those levels together a bit. Third instance. So same deal, we don't want to mess with the stereo field. And also this time we brought the levels in. So at this point, now what we can do is save it. And I'm going to go ahead and put the master chain on. We're going to do a lot of the same things. The exception will be we've got this fruity compressor, and that's going to be one of the first things we're going to look at. I've got an EQ first. Let's make sure that we have this the way we want. Okay, so let's pull up the compressor. And at this stage, you could add some saturation if you wanted to. But what I'm going to focus on is the limiter. So let's listen before, the compressor. Let's listen before the compressor gets turned on and after. And after. So you should notice it got a little bit louder. And the way that I got the settings for this compressor was I was working on another track a while ago, and I threw this on the master and just kind of tweaked the settings until I got something I wanted, or until I got something that I liked. And then I saved it, and now I start with those settings, and then I just kind of tweak them for each song. So I'm going to listen to this for a second and kind of tweak the settings. Okay, and I'm going to do something similar with this other compressor, except you'll notice something different about this compressor. The settings are quite a bit different. So as soon as I turn this on, you're going to notice everything's going to get way too loud and way too squashed. So you can see from like the residual from the sound that was just playing, there are these gaps where there isn't any sound. And turning on a compressor like this is going to essentially make there be no gap. So see how I turned it on, it immediately just filled up that gap. Okay, this is way over compressed. That's way over compressed and way too loud. But one thing you can do is you can over compress something like this and then tweak the settings till you get something that you like. And then turn the mix knob down. So that only some of that like over compressed signal is coming through, but most of it isn't. Okay, so let's go to our last instance of Maximus, and I'm going to do what I did in the first pre-master chain in the third instance of Maximus, where I went to the middle band and soloed it, and we're going to bring it in until we don't hear the kick or the 808 anymore, which we now know is somewhere up here. And then we don't want to hear the hat. And then this time, instead of compressing on a steeper and steeper curve, we are now going to be limiting, okay? And we're going back to affecting the stereo field. So the lows are now being pushed 10% merged, and I'm going to limit a little bit. So I brought it down by 0.2, so I brought this up by 0.2. Let's go to the mids. Okay, so I brought this down by 0.4. I'm going to bring it up by 0.4. Let's go to the highs. Brought this up by 0.6, so let's bring this down by 0.6. And my highs I separated by another 10%. Let's go to the master. Okay, Again, we're opening up another patcher preset for some stereo separation and stereo merging. We don't want to do too much of this because I'm already doing this a bunch every time I open up Maximus, basically, except for these. But okay, so the last thing I'm going to do, well, one of the last things I'm going to do is push the volume into a soft clipper as much as I can before things start to distort. So let's look and see about how much I think I can push into the soft clipper. Okay, so it looks like I could probably, that's not what I want. I could probably push it down to about here. So 1.3 decibels before I noticed. So let's start there. Let's push it 1.3. I might be able to go down to like 1.9, maybe 2. But I'm going to start with 1.3 and just see what it sounds like. So I'm going to put this below the soft clipper. That way it's going into the soft clipper first and then going into the limiter. And then I'm going to push this by 1.3 decibels. Okay, so I might be able to push it a little bit more. I'm hesitant to push it too much more because some of these louder parts are already pretty like blocky, and so it may get noticeable as I chop more and more of that off with the soft clipper. But I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try pushing a little bit more. I'm gonna push 1.5. Let's push 1.5 into it. Let's see. So this goes up to 2.8. 2.7 is probably close enough. Actually, I think I'm good there. As far, I think after listening a bit, I think I'm okay with the volume. All right, now what I'm going to do is listen back through and make sure I don't have any frequencies like poking out, because I think I might. And if and that's it. I'm going to put my tags on it really quickly, and that'll basically be the video.